Hello, I'm David Zahn of OK, Now What? And this live stream will address an issue that you're probably very familiar with, either from your personal experience or you perhaps have colleagues who have gone through this. And what I'm referring to is teacher burnout. This live stream will discuss some of the more common causes for that and hopefully leave you with a little bit of optimism that there is a better way for you to have a career, find professional fulfillment, and be able to do the things that drive you, motivate you, your passion for helping others, education, performance, improving behaviors, etc. So I think it's time for us then to really look at first defining our terms, because we use this phrase burnout, but we may have sort of a gut intuitive sense for what it means. But let's discuss actually what a definition of it is so that we're all working with the same understanding. So I went to the National Education Association, and they provide the following definition for burnout: a condition in which an educator has exhausted the personal and professional resources necessary to do the job. Fairly all encompassing. The resources, be it personal or professional, no longer are sufficient to meet the requirements of the job. However, what may surprise you is that teachers tend to see even higher levels of burnout than other professions. And that's according to a RAND survey, where they found more than twice as likely to be stressed versus other working adults. So teachers are experiencing burnout at twice the level of other employees in other professions. So you might be wondering, okay, I have a general sense for what it is, but how exactly do I recognize this condition called burnout? So let's look at that now, shall we? Any change in appetite, and that means perhaps that you become less interested in food, uh, or it may mean that you attempt to seek comfort, solace in eating, and it leads to a condition of overeating. In either instance, certainly not a positive. Other things to look for: do you find your energy level has shifted, that you have difficulty getting to sleep? Or perhaps once asleep, do you have difficulty remaining asleep? Do you find that you are fatigued throughout the day? Maybe you attempt to catch up on your sleep during the weekends, but during the week itself, you find that you're running on very low energy and essentially just existing on fumes. Obviously, not a good condition, and something that I hear from many of my clients, that they just wait for that last bell on Friday so that they can simply catch up on sleep. Not obviously a good way for you to work and for you to live. Do you have irregular hair loss? Now, obviously, it might seem a little funny considering that it's me saying this, given I obviously am someone who's follically challenged. But if you find suddenly that your hair has begun to fall out, that may be something that needs to be tended to. It's an indication, perhaps, that you are experiencing burnout, or at minimum, some other medical condition that requires attention. Other things that you may encounter: do you just have a general sense of dissatisfaction? The joy that you once had in your current role no longer exists. You don't get that same reinforcement, that same feedback that you once did from performing your job well. It just doesn't seem to matter to you as much anymore? Have you lost interest in leisure activities? Whereas before you might have been excited or enthused about being able to do something outside of work, you no longer have the energy, the interest, the inclination to engage in those things that once brought you pleasure, various leisure activities that you would look forward to in being involved with or performing no longer hold the same appeal. Do you have the general mental health concerns, whether it's just this anxiety that just is a black cloud, or maybe even a little bit more of a depressed state? Do you have a paranoia, fearfulness that things aren't going to occur the way you like them to? Almost like a PTSD? Do you have some kind of similarity to a post-traumatic stress disorder? Obviously, good signs that you are well into burnout. Do you find that your temper is much more likely to appear, that you are quicker to anger at what used to be something that you would allow to roll off your back, wasn't something that you were as concerned about, but now it does cause a very immediate and a very powerful angry response? Do you find it difficult to concentrate? Do you have a lack of focus? Another sign that perhaps you are experiencing burnout. Do you find that you're grinding your teeth as you sleep? Do you wake up with a sore jaw or generalized pain in your mouth because your teeth are being gnashed together? Typically, it's a stress reaction as you dream, as you think about the day that was or the week that will be upcoming. It leads to a physical reaction, often noted as a grinding of the teeth at night. Do you find that you are forever battling sickness? That you once were very healthy and very capable of fending off various kinds of colds or other minor illnesses, and now you find that you're not able to do so, that your body has been weakened to such a state that you do contract every illness that walks through your classroom or your school? Or maybe even more seriously, do you find you are experiencing digestive issues, and hopefully not an ulcer, but it's certainly not unheard of that people who are in the throes of being burned out will experience ulcers? Clearly a sign you need to make a change. And have you either increased or maybe even started some of those very bad habits that we all know are not in our best interests, whether it's smoking or drinking or hopefully not drug use? Or maybe just speaking of drug use, do you find that suddenly you have more prescriptions, blood pressure medications, sleep medications, mood stabilizers, etc.? A very good sign that something clearly is not right and you need to make some kind of an adjustment in what it is that you're doing. So another great sign that you are experiencing burnout. So let's look a little further at this, though, and what exactly causes this condition of burnout. And I'm sure what I'm about to share with you will be very familiar, things that you yourself could generate this list. Heavier workloads, what we once had as part and parcel of our workday has now been expanded. A lack of resources, everything from not enough construction paper in the younger grades to not having computers in the middle or higher level grades, and everything in between, textbooks, other materials used for classroom lessons, activities, exercises, suddenly don't exist, and you're having, as the teacher, to work around them, to find other ways to communicate the content. Obviously, that's going to lead to a higher level of stress. Certainly, a common cause of burnout that I'm hearing when I speak to my clients is the fact that the salary and other compensation is just not aligned with the role. The underpay, considering what is being required, just doesn't match. And so that's obviously a source of frustration. It's obviously a reason why many teachers have experienced this burnout, and it's getting worse, not better. As a result of teachers leaving, as a result of there being a lack of resources in the classroom, we're finding that there are staff shortages. That leads to a higher level of frustration and stress as the remaining teachers now have to take on additional roles and responsibilities. Probably shouldn't be the case, but in fact it is. There is a higher incidence of safety concerns. We all hear about the school shootings, the assaults that are occurring, the threats that are either perceived or in reality being delivered. These are all reasons why teachers and educators are really seriously reconsidering whether it's worth it for them to continue in the current job. The support issues, be it from administrators, parents, community, school boards, etc., have all become an issue that leads to teacher burnout because they're being pulled in so many different directions. And it just becomes untenable for them that I cannot, as a teacher, meet everyone's needs, and everyone is barking, and everything is at the highest level of priority, that there's just no semblance of how can this be accomplished? How can we accomplish what it is that we're seeking to do within the classroom and beyond? And another common one that's shared with me is there seems to have been a very dramatic shift in student behaviors. Certainly, the impact of COVID, where students were not in school for large chunks of time, and depending on where you're viewing this, it may have been just a matter of months, or it could have been an entire school year or more before students were back in the classroom. The loss in the student experience by not being in the classroom is still being felt and will continue to be felt for years, plural, before we even get to some semblance of where we were. And many of you who have been around a good number of years will say it actually wasn't even that good right before COVID, that there had still been this trend of student behavior being on the decline. And certainly funding shortfalls, as for whatever the reason, education does not receive the support financially that would make it that much better. So it's forever in this fight to claim whatever funds it can in order to provide the education. And there are increasing responsibilities being placed on teachers to teach more or different things than what the curriculum used to contain. There's just a lack of time to get it all done and to get it done at the right levels. And then you have the testing that's occurring and holding people accountable very often for things that they don't really have an influence over, or at least not a major enough influence to move the needle. And it just becomes a situation that just increases the tension that teachers feel, leading to burnout. So let's look at some further facts that I think may just be very eye-opening. And for the record, I am using a source called the devlinpack.com Teacher Burnout Statistics, Why Teachers Quit in 2024. So the first thing to share with you is that kindergarten through 12th grade teachers are the number one most burnt out profession in the United States. I work in this field, and that was still startling to me that teachers are the number one most burned out profession. Next, just shy of half of those teachers report often or always feeling burnout. Half, just about half of teachers are in a perpetual state of feeling burnt out. That just cannot continue before people break, before they snap. So that's obviously something that needs a lot of attention. 90% of teachers claim that feeling burnt out is a serious problem. I don't know what the other 10% feel, but certainly I think it's clear that feeling burnt out is never going to be seen as a positive. It can only be a serious problem that has ripples and implications for our educational system, for working with students, for modeling right behaviors, for doing all the things that we aspire to as educators and teachers. More than 50% say that they plan on leaving teaching sooner than what they had initially or originally planned. So we not only are short-staffed, but it looks as if that's going to get worse, not better. And further, the salary, the compensation is the primary reason that educators plan to quit their jobs. This is not an easy thing to fix when you're telling someone we're going to give you more work, more responsibility, fewer resources, and we're not going to pay you comparable to your contribution. That would certainly lead most of us to reconsider maintaining our current role. Certainly not something that we want to long term, which explains why people are leaving even sooner than what they had initially planned. But this is not just occurring in the classroom itself. Over a third of the senior educational leaders are also experiencing burnout. So it's not just one group. It is pervasive throughout the system. And some of the reasons given for why the senior leaders are experiencing burnout is the fact that they're having to juggle the scheduling and the meeting of the vacancy issues. Obviously, they're being pulled and tugged in multiple directions as well. Parents, school board, central office needs not always being aligned. And so therefore, what satisfies one group is in direct contrast to what another group wants. And so it's an attempt to keep all the plates spinning, if you will, and hoping that none of them fall and crack, but it's just a no-win situation. Further, even the support staff in schools are also experiencing that feeling of burnout. 21% say they feel burnt out. 15% report pretty steady or constant exhaustion. So again, everywhere you turn within the school system, you are experiencing burnout. There is no relief. There is no group that's left unaffected. Further, quitting is not just something that's said in the faculty lunchroom or before the students show up and people are having those water cooler conversations. More than 300,000 public school teachers and other education-related employees quit between February of 2020 and May of 2022. And obviously, since that's now 2 years old, a lot more have quit since then. At the time, that equated to 3% of the workforce. How many other careers could sustain their performance with a loss of 3% of the workforce? And we also know that it tends to be those that are more senior that would be the ones who are looking to leave. So you're losing your best people and you're losing them by the bucketfuls. And again, the 55%, over half of teachers report plans to leave their jobs sooner than they originally planned. And that was from 2 years ago that the research had. But as you can see, it was a fairly large jump from just a year prior. And while we don't have the research from 2022 until now, even if it stays at that same level, that's eye-opening. That is certainly something that requires our attention as society. And then we have just shy of half of public schools have posted vacancies due to resignations that they did not forecast. They didn't factor into their staffing plans, which leads to that short staffing situation that we had referenced earlier. It also means that more time and attention has to be placed on sourcing new teachers, going through the hiring process, having to then orient or onboard them, and the quality of education clearly is going to suffer on many levels. You have people who are now having to be more dedicated to that effort, as well as you're going to have now more inexperienced and junior teachers coming in and expecting them to provide the same contribution that their more tenured or experienced colleagues had been providing. And then, as if that's not enough of an eye-opener, 1/3 fewer college students are entering as education majors than had done so in the year 2008. So you have these openings that exist and fewer bodies capable of filling them. It's obviously a very significant issue. But why is this so high? Well, probably you could make this list as easily as anyone else. 3/4 of teachers report they had to assume extra duties by virtue of there being a shortage of bodies at the professional level. They're having to spread themselves more thinly. So 80% share they have to do additional work beyond the roles that are supposed to be within the confines of their job description. Obviously, the student behavior and classroom disruptions are higher than they were pre-COVID, and we all know they weren't exactly at the low point, even at that time frame. And with regard to COVID specifically, more teachers have grown concerned about the health implications of being in classrooms very often with poor ventilation, with students that are coming into the class either non-vaccinated or carrying other diseases, communicable, contagious, or otherwise. So it's a real concern for many teachers who may themselves be somewhat compromised in their own health, and now they're being exposed to more virulent and more dangerous kinds of diseases. And the safety factor still is on most people's minds and does not appear to have a solution that can provide that level of comfort and security for many teachers. So a whole lot going on, obviously, and a whole lot that needs our time and attention in order to fix this. But before it does, so many of us as teachers are leaving, are deciding it's just not worth it for us to continue in this profession. As if the issue wasn't highlighted and spotlighted enough in terms of what it means for us culturally and as a society, 85% of teachers reported that the current path or trend that they are on is unsustainable. It's just not able to continue as it is. Demands have become far too great for too many of us, and people are leaving. Now, nearly half, 43%, so a little shy of half, say they're even unable to get 6 hours of sleep, whether it's interrupted or uninterrupted. In total, they can't sleep 6 hours because they toss and turn, because they're unable to get to sleep, because they're just so frustrated, so burned out that they're unable to have their bodies rest. About a third, 31%, say that they just look forward to the weekends so that they can catch up on what they would have ordinarily been able to do during the week. So they're not looking forward to the weekend so that they can relax. They're looking forward to the weekend because it gives them 2 days to do the things that they used to be able to do Monday through Friday. Clearly, this is a clarion call. We have to do more. We have to do better. Making it even worse, as if that wasn't bad enough, female teachers experience a higher turnover, a higher burnout and emotional exhaustion, and even neuroticism than male teachers. That is a frightening thought, that given the profession is still heavily skewed towards women, that they are experiencing this at an even more heightened level than their male counterparts. And probably we can understand the reasons, because culturally and conventionally, female teachers also have the primary responsibilities once at home for the child rearing and the maintenance of the home. And so even in some of the more egalitarian marriages, if the female teacher even has a partner or a spouse, they may be a single parent, and it all falls to them. It just becomes overwhelming. Black and Hispanic educators are even more likely to quit earlier than planned than their Caucasian counterparts. And there's a whole thrust to try to have the teachers more closely resemble the students in their class. And we're finding that even if we cannot hire them at the right rate, we're losing them faster than we can hire them, making the situation, frankly, worse than it could be, needs to be, and should be. And that younger teachers and teachers working in lower income districts and or with pre-K or high school students are the most likely to leave. So you're losing them at the beginning, you're losing them at the end, you're losing them where perhaps they're most needed in those lower income areas. So this is certainly an industry that is just ripe for changes, wholesale changes. But until such time, we are seeing more and more teachers leaving the classroom and more educators leaving the school and the school systems. But I know you live this, and I know what I've shared with you here, for the most part, is not a surprise. Maybe some of the numbers are a surprise, but generally you're experiencing this. Certainly, if you're a part of my Facebook group, this is not new news to you. So I'm fairly confident this doesn't come as a total shock or a total surprise to you. But the choice is up to you now. You can see clearly how this story ends if we wait for the last chapter. And I want you to know I'm here to help you put a plan in place so that you can leave on your terms before it reaches an even greater crisis state than it already is. So I'd like to invite you to please, let's make a contact, let's talk to each other and see if perhaps we can arrange, no cost, no obligation, to have you just a 20-minute conversation. Let's understand how you would like to be able to use your skills, your expertise, your experiences, your passions, so that you can make a smooth transition from your current role in the school to perhaps another role that will be more fulfilling, than your current one and won't lead to you having some of these issues and characteristics of burnout. I look forward to helping you achieve that. Look forward to talking soon.